Today is September 12th. My name is Anthony Villanueva. I am interviewing Nicole Villanueva for the Latino Oral History Project, Voices of the Pandemic Project at the Latino Center and Latin American Studies at Northern Illinois University. This project is in partnership with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Villanueva, that this interview will be placed in Northern Illinois University libraries and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas in Austin. If there is anything that you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something that you want to talk about, please bring it up. Because I'm conducting this interview in person and not in person, I need to ask some questions for your consent. Do you give the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Northern Illinois University's libraries?
I do.
Do you grant Northern Illinois University libraries the right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
I do.
Do you agree to allow Northern Illinois University libraries to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I do.
Do you grant the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and your materials with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of the Pandemic Oral History Mini Project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
I do.
Do you wish for us to share the rest of your pre-interview in your public files available to researchers at the Benson and NYU libraries?
I do.
On occasion, the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies in Voces receives requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email with journalists?
I do.
Okay, we're through that. On your side, do you see the recording light on your
Yes.
phone? Good. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, education?
My name is Nicole Villanueva. I was born and raised in Secaucus, New Jersey. I went to college part of the years at UF. I actually moved to Florida in 2006, where I currently live. Live in Tampa, Florida. I have just celebrated 13 years. I've been working for a major healthcare company, various positions, but I'm celebrating 13 years this year, and I'm currently training for my first Ironman triathlon.
Okay, we'll talk about your Ironman later on, because I want to get as part of the COVID impact on your life. But can you tell me how COVID has impacted your life?
I am a telecommuter, and I have been for 6 years. So as far as work-wise, I have been working from home, so it hasn't really affected me. A lot of my coworkers that were office people were sent home, and they were set up remotely. My company, I was very impressed that they turned those people around remotely within days, because they didn't want to have them exposed or to one another at the time, especially not knowing what's going on.
Do you want to mention what company you work for?
Probably not. It's just a major healthcare company.
Okay. And what are your responsibilities at that job?
I do contracting, business development, provider relations. I work with our internal clinical team to assist. I'm not a clinical person, but more of I work in the network division. So I contract with providers to service our members for a particular division.
Okay. And how has your job changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID now. How was your job before the COVID in terms of your interacting with clients?
Oh, so I was tasked to basically, as much as I can, go out and visit them. One part I deal with the assisted living section, so a lot of the we would have to go out and do actual walkthroughs, just to kind of every 3 years, just to make sure they were home-like settings. So walk through, we didn't really, I mean, we would see the members because they live there, but it wasn't our responsibility to interact with them because I'm a provider advocate. So my job was to go in and just do a walkthrough and answer a series of questions. That still is required, but we're not allowed to go to actual, we call them providers accounts. When I say provider, it's a type of so you say like a home health agency. In my world, I call it a provider because they're providing the service. So when I say provider, that's what I mean. So we're not allowed to any face-to-face interaction. Everything is telephonic. Where previously, when we had the chance and the opportunity, we would go out naturally and meet with them face to face. It's a better relationship building. All sorts of expos. Actually, every August, July and August every year is one of the time of the year that we have a lot of healthcare expos. We basically go and represent about 3 of them, and they were all canceled. So there's really it's very limited interaction. Even the clinical people, they try and do everything kind of like this, Zoom or iPhone, anything, nothing. They want to limit the touch points as much as possible, especially in my role because I'm not clinical.
And what part of Florida were you responsible for?
I have 5 counties, so I live in Tampa, and I'm responsible. Hillsborough County is where this is the county, Tampa. Hillsborough, Hardy and Highlands is more central of the state, and then Manatee County near Sarasota, and Polk.
And that entailed commuting at times when you had to make these visits? You had to drive to these and visit.
I'm sorry?
You had to visit these facilities before COVID?
Yes.
Now you don't have to. You do everything via Zoom or telephonic.
Well, they just don't want us to.
Yeah.
And plus, the assisted living facilities aren't even allowed to have visitors. So I know as far as like family members, everything's very limited. You can't, even sometimes you see on TV how they have, I don't know if in here, in Tampa, I know you're not in Florida, but how people are visiting from outside the window. I mean, yes. It has come to that.
Yes. And in your own experiences, did you know of anybody that contracted the COVID virus?
I actually know 3 people.
You want to tell me about them?
The first one is a friend of mine. She's early 30s. She lives in California. She found out in February, the end of February, that she contracted COVID. At the time, she had flu-like symptoms, and she went to the doctor, and at the time, they didn't really have much testing. So they basically told her, because she was healthy and she's into fitness and a triathlete, they basically told her to go home and just, I don't want to say shake it off, fight it off. Right. And that's what she did. So she quarantined herself, and she recovered. She's fine now. I think she gets tested, though. I spoke to her a week and a half ago. She was getting tested again because she had traveled somewhere. So that would be interesting, how they say, once you have it, will you get it again? And I believe her test came back negative. So she's fine. Another friend, and this is just a friend that on social media, I went to high school with her, but she posted her experience and pictures. Hers was a little more extreme. First and foremost, she had false positive tests, and I think they said they thought she had pneumonia. And then the pictures that she had posted, she had black eyes. That was one I never, because you heard about this flu-like symptoms, you heard about the loss of smell, but her pictures, her eyes were like underneath, were all bruised. And I think she was in the hospital. She was in the hospital. She's not married. She has a daughter, and they made the daughter go stay with the grandparents because they didn't want her in the same home. She's since recovered, and the daughter never tested positive. And then a third friend that lives in St. Pete, Florida, she lives alone. She has a son, but he no longer lives with her. She contracted it. She has no idea how she did. She lost her sense of smell. That's how she knew. But she works in an office. She has an office space, but she doesn't have a lot of traffic coming in and out of it. And she always wore a mask. And she even said when she went out, she really limited where she went. And she found out this happened in June, because I called her for her birthday. And I was like, happy birthday. How are you? Oh, I have COVID. It's like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
But her too, she also recovered. She quarantined. All her friends got that. She notified all her friends, which was nice, and that she interacted with, and they all got tested. So now, as the middle, that was June, the testing is more available. But my friend in California, that was more because they didn't really know what was going on, and she contracted it from she believes when she went to a doctor visit, one of the physicians had it.
Okay. And how in your apartment, your home, how has COVID changed how you handle your home in terms of interacting with people?
I'm sorry, say that again.
How has COVID impacted your home in terms of how you interact with people?
Oh, so in the beginning, probably around April, because I remember, and I'm only telling you this because of time frame, because I have to think how it's changed and how it's changed again. So I remember March 17th, I think that's St. Patrick's Day. The only reason I knew that is because I was with my family in Clearwater, my family that was here. And that's kind of when it was getting real. Like they were here, people stay home, the beaches are closed, every restaurants closed. That's when it started to get real. And I actually got very panicked. I live alone. I don't have children, and I'm not married. So I don't have a lot of people coming in and out of my house anyway. But I was very, so that's just that's my lifestyle. So it was just myself. And really the only people that come inside here at the time really is the pest guy. But even they were like canceling appointments. They didn't want people coming in.
Right.
They didn't, like my job didn't want us to go visit people. I'm sure all companies were tasked or with their employees, but they're taking a hit because they have a business to run. But regardless, I would not let anybody in my house. Instacart, and I actually found myself getting panicky because I'm a single girl of one. I like to eat, but I found myself Instacart every day. Like it was getting neurotic. My freezer was packed, and I was just, because at least here in Florida, they made it like stock up. You can't go to the store. They're gonna run out of food, and I found myself like looking at my banking account. I'm being serious. Instacart, I mean, it was, and stocking up with the paper goods, like it was a little maddening, for a
So,
while.
so it
Even
caused
like my
you.
mom was like, you need to be careful, but you're getting yourself all worked up. But then actually her tune changed too. See, because I work for a healthcare company, from the beginning of this, we had calls and and meetings and graphs and tracks and trends. So for me, I would see it every morning. So on top of the news and on top of that, I became kind of neurotic at that time. I've lessons. Do you want me to tell you how I am now as opposed to that?
Yes.
Okay, so probably, and I'm also training for a triathlon, so that put a damper in the training because they didn't want you to go outside. You couldn't if somebody sweats on you, if somebody sneezes on you. Sorry, I mean, I'm trying not sneeze, but if you get too close of interaction, nobody knew if you walk past somebody. So I've really limited myself. I wouldn't even ride my bike on a bike trail. The pools to train in the pool, they all started closing. Running, I found myself in all seriousness, that was the only thing I would do, because if I saw somebody, I remember people coming near me and I would run the other way. Like I was really in my brain, like, programmed. If I see somebody get too close, boom. And then as the year has gone on and it's still going on, I kind of found myself getting myself a little worked up over it. And I wasn't quite sure if it was media driven that I was getting worked up or my own self anxiety. So I told myself, I remember it was May. I really need to have a balance, because I am a healthy woman. I try and take care of myself. I don't have, like I said, I don't have small children or people coming in. I don't have a spouse that's going out to a workplace and coming back, because that's the thing too. It's just so weird. I don't want to say weird. It's just so unknown. If you are near one person that's asymptomatic, see, I don't have that lifestyle. So I really changed that. I had to just have a balance and just be cautious. I wear a mask when I go into a store. I'm very respectful of the people. I limit, I have been to a restaurant, but I always sit outside. Hand sanitizer is part of my, in my makeup bag, like a lipstick. It's just one of those things that now, I don't want to say it's, you used to leave the house and say, oh, I forgot my keys or I forgot my credit card. Now I forgot my mask, but in my glove compartment, I have a disposable ones. And then going back to my job, and I'm sorry if I'm flip flopping, some of the accounts that I had around March and April, it was very, very, they couldn't find any protective PPE equipment anywhere. They could not find, it was back order. There was none to be found. It was actually pretty interesting. So one of my accounts, she actually, to protect her people, her and her mother actually made masks. So they made like hundreds of masks for her employees, and she was kind enough to send me some, because I remember at the time, even I couldn't find one. The shelves were scarce of sanitizer and toilet paper and cleaning I mean, I still have not seen Lysol in Florida. Disinfectant wipes, I saw them a few weeks ago. You thought that they placed diamonds on the shelf. I mean, stuff like that really is hard to come by, but you're programmed to go into a store and look for it, But my life has come. I've tried to just this is our life now, and until something comes or they come up with a cure or it starts to level out or phase out. It is what it is.
And what about your family there in the Tampa, Florida area? How are they coping with the COVID?
My sister actually works in an assisted living facility. So I always say she's kind of, it's a petri dish there. That's I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but she's in the mix of the population that initially they said it was going to affect the most. So she, goes to work every day. She wears a mask. She wears a shield, and she gets tested every 2 weeks. And it's required by the state for employees that work in ALFs and skilled nursing facilities. There might be a few other places that are required. I just know those two because of my job. But she's required to get tested every 2 weeks. And I mean, she handles it well. She is just kind of like, that's her job, and it is what it is for now. So, I think a lot of people that are still employed are just thankful, because it's really shaken a lot of people's lives medically, emotionally, financially. So for her, she handles it well. My mother and my stepfather are both retired. They live in Clearwater. They're pretty cautious of what they do and who they interact with. My stepfather recently had a heart procedure, so I don't even go near him. I visited him a few weeks ago because I wanted to see him I hadn't seen him in months, and we kept the front door open, and I sat outside with a chair, because there's too much unknown, especially people that have pre-existing conditions. So for me, I'm a healthy woman, and I try, and I don't have any pre-existing conditions, but I would never jeopardize, we FaceTime a lot, to keep the,
So that your stepfather has a pre-existing conditions, you don't have any. How about your sister?
my sister my sister actually had her thyroid removed. So she doesn't have a thyroid. So that concerned me in the beginning, because, because of that, but she seems to handle it fine.
Okay. Have you lost any friends because of the COVID? Or has anyone treated you any differently?
Excuse me?
Has anyone treated you any differently?
No.
No?
No.
Have you lost any income because of the COVID?
No, I've actually been very blessed and lucky. My company has kept people intact. And actually, I want to say May. So my team, I work for it's considered the network team. We build we work the network, the providers, the contracts. And they actually I thought it was interesting. They hired somebody in May to join our team. So I've been very fortunate that, because of the industry I'm in, and we've actually, because of COVID, we've had a lot of more special projects. I mean, we always try and interact with our providers, make sure they're taken care of. I always say I don't like any of my providers being like a hamster on a wheel. I always use that, because that way the way of working is so ineffective, non-productive. So we've always been, the way my role is to interact with our providers as much as we can, but even now more so because of COVID, we have to check in with them. We have a certain calendar and a metrics to meet, just to make sure they're okay, especially when there was no equipment. I mean, people were panicking. Like I said, that one woman was making masks for her employees. I mean,
and has the PPE situation improved?
Yes, it has. I mean, it's as far as within my job, we actually, as a company, so the providers themselves, whoever they order from, the companies, that's a direct order that it has nothing to do with my company. So, but from talking to them, yes, they have the supplies that they need. Excuse me. My company actually has donated masks to some of the providers, which was really nice. And then as far as like even in stores, you see them everywhere now. Gas stations. I mean, Walgreens, CVS, the supermarkets. I mean, they're stocked. Sanitizer. I mean, all that stuff it went from, you know, you saw those, I don't know if you know that there was a story of two brothers that when they got wind of this, they went around to all the dollar stores. They actually were in car, did a road trip and wiped out the shelves of sanitizer. It was on the internet. I read the story, and it was a legitimate source. But even the stores, as far as the you see the masks, you see I mean, that part of it's night and day. That part too. The toilet paper, and I'm talking off just normal like human supplies that were nowhere to be found. So that's why I'm bringing this up. Like the toilet paper, the paper towels, stuff like that. In Florida, you still have like a limit. You can only buy. They put a limit on what you can buy, because at one point they weren't putting a limit on things, so people were going a little maddening over it. So the supply situation has gotten better as far as from a business perspective, you know, for my job and a personal, because when you go to the store, you pretty much can find whatever you need for the most part. The thing that I find interesting is, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead. Go.
Okay. The one thing I do find interesting is the clothing. So when you go to clothing stores here, the fitting rooms are closed. You can't try anything on. You could touch it, you know, you could purchase it, and then you could return it. So I had asked the girl, I was just curious. So I take this home. I can't try it on here, but I buy it and I take it home and I could return it. And she said they have a special, she didn't get into the whole procedure, but she said they have a quarantine policy for returns. See, I would think the person tries it on at that point, they don't buy it, just deal with it at the store level. But they're actually here in Florida, you could buy whatever you want at the store and you could return it like normal.
Okay. Do you want to tell me about your triathlon endeavors?
Oh, right. So I'm actually
tell me before COVID what your plans were, and now COVID.
So I went to an Ironman competition, and I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a very hot. It's probably the pinnacle of triathlon. I mean the Olympics has triathlon, but it's a 2.4 mile swim. It's 112-mile bike ride, and it's a full marathon. I actually interesting enough, I was in Panama City last November, and people from all over the world participate, and they hold these events all over the world, everywhere, you know, they're throughout the year. So I volunteered. Two of my friends were competing, and so, you know, from the 4 a.m. you're body marking, you're touching people, you know, high-fiving people you don't know, hugging people you don't know, because it's a very emotional, because it's a pretty huge accomplishment if you can get through it. So what I'm getting at is there's a lot of physical interaction, you know, the swim part, people, you're swimming on top of one another, you know, think about, so I volunteered at that, and I was so blown away by what I saw. I was like, I need to get into this. I need to figure out how I could do it. If they can do it, why can't I do it? So basically that's so that I registered for my first, because I never even did a triathlon before, so I was just gonna say I'm gonna do an Ironman because that's really how I do things in life. I agree to things and I just figure it out as I go. But as the COVID was coming and things were getting canceled, all the races that were leading up, this Ironman that I'm participating is still in November and it has not been canceled yet. Everything is month over month getting canceled. And like I said previously, with me being a little scared or very scared, put a little bit of a damper on my training for about 4 to 5 weeks because I couldn't do the things. Well, pools were closed, you can go train at the pool. So there were things that I was limited to do at the time. But now, probably after that 4 to 5 weeks of getting it all back together mentally and as far as our training schedule, we're back in to the point where we need to be. However, the one thing I did want to just say is, from what we know, is this probably around January, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot of different myths and stories and unknowns, but somewhere around January, in the first week of February, this kind of started to be like a hot topic, this COVID. For me, two things. I personally think it was around a lot longer before what they're telling us. So put me in the mix of all those people from all over the world in November. Could I have had it? Could I have contracted it? Could I be asymptomatic at this point? Maybe, maybe not. And my sister, actually Thanksgiving, we were at a beach. We had celebrate. She had gotten at the beach. We had a room at the beach, and she was so sick, flu-like symptoms. Now, looking back at it, we thought, oh, she's probably just sick. That's a little, I don't know. I guess I'm just telling you this because of the time frames. I personally, in November, put myself in a mix of thousands of people that I didn't know. And like, there's a few things that in my brain that, especially the time frame of COVID. Was it before 2020? Did it? I mean, why do they call it why do they call it COVID-19? I just don't.
So you think that in 2019 your sister might have contracted COVID?
I think the symptoms that she had were very similar to my friend that actually was tested positive in February. And I think it wasn't flu season in Florida. It wasn't flu season anywhere in
Right.
November, right?
Right.
And where we live in a warm climate and she has flu-like symptoms.
Where you live, are there any cruise ships that come in from all over the world that have tourists coming in?
Not, I mean, when there were, yes, Tampa, there's a lot of ports. So Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, there's several. That's actually an interesting that you brought that up, because there are many people that were stuck on cruise ships in the state. And even at the time, I had a coworker that COVID was known. They said, don't go on ships, don't, and she still went. Because it was right at the cusp of people were still trying to live normal lives, and she still went on her cruise. She came back and they made her quarantine for 14 days though.
So going forward, do you think this is going to be the new normal?
It's going to be for a while.
Even
until they come up with some sort of, because the cases are not declining. It's not just like anywhere you look. I mean, there's all different statistics, or whatever source you use. There's all different number. I mean, and that's another thing. There's different numbers. So it's not so much the source, it's the fact that they're not declining.
Right. Isn't Florida experiencing an uptick in cases now?
Yep. But you have to take into consideration, even like tourists, they're not restricting people from other states coming, and people are still coming. And I get it. It's a very touristy state, and that's how the state makes a lot of their revenue. But that's another thing. I'm a resident here. I've been for about 14 years, and you have a major pandemic. I know people still want to try and live a normal life, but I was driving the other day. Within 10 minutes, I saw 2 New York plates, North Carolina and South Carolina. Unless they're all rental cars, because I know some of the rental places use out-of-state plates for some, or even like the spring breakers in April, they were right over here in Clearwater Beach, still, but at the time we were told up until really, because when this rolled out, we were told it's not a big deal, it's kind of like the flu. If you get it, you'll recover. So I think from the get-go, the way it was messaged to us, that's where some people got either really didn't think it really was much of anything and didn't really take it seriously. And then you had the other people hoarding products and stuff. But I think, is it going to be the new norm? It's going to, until they come up with something and the cases start going down, or even, unfortunately.
If a vaccine came out before the end of the year, would you trust in the vaccine?
I would not. And I would not trust it, and I have no desire to get a COVID vaccine.
And how do you think the state of Florida has handled this pandemic?
I think they could have been a lot stricter with certain things. I understand certain things are essential, and I totally understand. And I can't speak because I do work from home, so that would make me see, that's just inappropriate for me, because my world, sorry, I have to knock on wood, wasn't shaken up over financially. And I understand, the restaurant, all the people, I know a lot of people that lost businesses or out of work and whatnot. I think they could have handled it a little bit better. I know they didn't want to make everybody panic and freak out like this is gonna end the world, but I think because it came from even like the federal government, when it started up there. It's not a big deal. If you get it, it's kind of like the flu. So I think it trickled down. So everybody else followed suit because, again, the state, they have to take care of their people, but they also need revenue coming through. So they weren't as serious with certain points where I think they could have. And, there were some gatherings. There was a church gathering a few months ago with like 800 people. I mean, I think people really, I know everybody wants to get back to live to their normal lives. We all do. But by the numbers, you have to be a little sensible of what you're doing. And the state didn't necessarily, the problem was that they weren't as strict from the get-go. So there was really, you could put curfews and all that, but then unfortunately the whole time then the riots kind of overlapped. So it was really hard to control people. Really hard. I mean, I have she's a female, she's a sheriff in Tampa, you know, there's only so many people. There's only so many people. So many people that live here, and then there's only so many people that could quote unquote control them. And I don't know if controlling them is the right word to use, but you know, when you're trying to tell somebody to wear a mask and it's all over the news, and I've been in a store, I see a lot of people respectful, but I've been in certain situations where grown men were yelling at the manager. They didn't want to put a mask on. So how do you control that? Because if you take it to the next step and you confront them, then you're opening it up for something even worse to happen. It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I hope that, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. You know, again, I work from home. I don't have a family, so I don't want to say fortunate in the sense I have all control over my choices. So I'm not interacting with somebody in my home that I have to potentially worry about where were they, who do they interact with. But so anything on this is naturally my personal opinion. Nope, but I thank you for inviting me to share this,
No, I thank you
my
for
thoughts.
being so patient with the times that we tried this, but this time I think it worked perfectly.
Yep.
So you have the rest of your day. Enjoy yourself, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.